Hello, everybody. Welcome to On the Homefront. Very happy to have you with us again. We're going to have a special show today in two segments. For the second half, we're going to focus on music and a very new release from Bob Bralove and musician Pattie Weiss. They have a wonderful collection of duets and improvisation called Acoustic Conversations. I think we just lost our microphone, but we'll be talking to Bob on the phone halfway through the show. He did a lot of work with the Grateful Dead over the years and his own recordings. Very nice music. I'm very happy to share that with you later in the program. But today, right now, I'm very happy to open the program with Dr. Karim Ismaeli. He's the president of Eastern Connecticut State University, finishing his first year. He's about 10 months in now. And this is our third studio visit, and we're going to review the year past and the year ahead and the changing role and challenges of higher education today. As a liberal arts school, Eastern has a unique role in the state, and we'll talk about that as well. But first of all, Karim, thank you very much for being here in the house again.
It's my pleasure.
It's always good to have you in the studio. So what we'll do to begin is maybe review the first 10 months or so. A very busy year, a lot of good things happen, and a lot of challenges are in the works. So how did you assess it, and how do you feel how things are now compared to maybe your initial thoughts?
Well, how I assess it, I think, is the way that it's funny you asked that question, because I am at this point where the system has asked me to do a self-appraisal. And I've been thinking about the year, and the year has been incredible in so many ways. I think when we met John, I was talking about how the initial welcome that I received was so warm, and I've been on a high really for the whole 10 months. I would say that, you know, as I was thinking about my own review, I'm not the kind of person that would assess myself. I think that's for others to do.
Yeah.
But as I sit here, I feel that the university is in a good place. Of course, there are undercurrents, as you mentioned, that we have to attend to, some of which are at home and some of them are sort of emanating from other places. The important thing for us to do, and for the university to do, which we do every day, as you know, John, is to make sure that our students get the best education possible, the best experience possible, so that they're ready for their futures. And I believe at Eastern we're doing that, and we're doing it in a concerted, energetic way that supports everything we do.
And I think part of the reason why your reception was so emotional is that you went through a major effort to go all over the campus on a tour for genuinely personal, quiet meetings with all the different groups, which really laid a foundation. And it showed a real connection, you know, kind of beyond the interest of a new person coming in, but a genuine saying, I'm going to be here for a while. We're going to set a new system here. And I was very encouraged that so many people spoke well of that, because things are shaky now. Funding is shaky, but when the fundamentals are solid, you can weather a storm, and it's happened before.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So we go through cycles. The community, and through the various listening sessions, I called it a listening and learning tour.
Right, that's right.
It was an opportunity for me to just meet with people, a cross-section of campus individuals, but also I met with alums, I met with foundation board members, system officials. I mean, you name it, we created a very methodical way of kind of connecting with people. And it was not for me to share my sense of Eastern, but it was for people to share their own sense of Eastern, for me to learn how they feel about Eastern. And what I came away with was people who love Eastern, who care deeply about the mission, who care about the region that we serve, and are focused on doing the best that we can with the resources that we have to serve the mission of the university.
Now, one thing that's extremely unstable now is the situation with international students. Going home could be a risk. Staying abroad could be a risk to come back. Things are very uncertain. And one thing that I was very happy about many years ago is when President Nunez embraced DACA.
Yes.
And Eastern was one of the first schools when it was first being implemented to kind of come out, stand up and put their name on the list
Yep.
to welcome these students and to encourage that because they're flowering at Eastern.
Yep.
And I wonder what your guidance has been for how students are trying to kind of navigate these waters when we're doing this in June, but 3 months they're back for school and things are very uncertain.
Yeah, stepping back, I think it's really important to understand the context in which our students are living and learning. There are so many pressures and stresses that are real, that they experience. And for us, as individuals that work at the university, for me, that leads the university, we have to be cognizant of that. We have to recognize the implications and impact that has on students, because students ultimately are at Eastern to get their degree.
Yeah.
Right? So when I think of the pressures that they're under, for a variety of reasons, what we have to do is, first of all, ensure that they're safe, ensure that they can learn in an environment where they don't have to worry about the protection that we offer, because that's the baseline. We need to make sure that they're fed, right? So we think about, the hierarchy of needs. That's really important. And we want to make sure that students constantly, and this has been my sort of effort at outreach to students, let them know that we care about them, that we want to hear from them, and if anything is disrupting them, no matter what it is, if they're comfortable sharing it with us, we will do everything we can to make sure that they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And I should mention, for full disclosure, that I'm very honored. I'm a part-time faculty member at Eastern now for 40 years. Part of the reason why I stay there is the school and how it's functioning and helping. But the whole thing is about the students in the room. And I see kids today under a lot more stress than 40 years ago. It's always stressful. Going to school
Yes.
is a life thing. It's always an incredible stress and beautiful thing. But today there's a lot of extra things. And
Yes.
I see it on their faces and their ability to focus sometimes.
Yes.
And I just wonder, all schools are struggling.
Yeah.
At the higher levels of education, when you navigate the waters, how are people saying, what are the common strategies to help resolve it so students can get back to normal?
Yeah. I think that, I think the most recent experience we had was, of course, COVID.
Yeah.
Which impacted so many students, impacted all of us. I think we're honest about that. So we know that there were socialization opportunities that were missed. We know that there were learning deficits that were amplified. We know that this had significant impacts on students and how they think about concentration, how they engage with technology, but also how they engage interpersonally. So, as someone who leads a university, I know that the faculty responsibility and the role of faculty has also changed. We think about the stresses and pressures that students are going through. We also know that our faculty, our staff, everyone that cares and wants to educate students, they're also adapting. This fall I'm going to be teaching a course at Eastern.
Fabulous.
And I'm looking forward to it. And the reason is, first of all, I want to teach a course, but also because I want to experience our students in the way that our faculty experience our students. Yeah. And understand the context in which they're learning. We all have our own experiences. What I appreciate at Eastern is there are venues and context where we can talk with one another about how we can understand our students, respond to situations. We have great supports and resources available. It's really important for students to know that those resources are available so that they're able to, again, focus on what's important.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little disclosure here. What will your course be? I'm curious.
So thank you for asking.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and it's going to be in the liberal arts core.
Okay.
And it's going to be called Why Universities Matter. That's the course.
Well, that's a very timely topic, and it's something that we talked about last time we were here, is the role of the liberal arts today.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are questioning that core foundation. And just, I guess for myself, there's so much focus on earning a stable, predictable income, whatever you have to do to have an earning, stable income. But that's going to change.
Yes.
And what do you do when things don't go according to plan? To me, the whole thing of liberal arts is everything else in your life except your paycheck.
Yeah.
how it all fits together.
Yep.
Okay, and that's a hard message, to get into when people think, well, you're just proselytizing, but it's more like the role of school is being questioned now.
Yeah.
And if it's just getting the work is great, but there's more, and the world needs more than that.
Yeah.
So how do you articulate that in 25 words or less?
Well, so fortunately, okay, let me try.
Yeah.
Well, I think the focus on employability and career can coexist with the liberal arts. We shouldn't be thinking, I'm going to a university or a college where I'm going to get a job. That's important, right? But it's also important to have the habits in mind, the skills that are going to be adaptable, allow you to be adaptable through the course of your life. We know that lots of students who graduated just a few weeks ago, graduate in the future, they're going to have to adapt, transition. Mm-hmm. We want them to have the skills, communication, team building, adaptability, creative thinking, all of the things we value at Eastern is going to serve them well. So I call what we do, I think you've heard this, John, liberal arts plus.
Yeah.
It's liberal arts plus. Yeah.
Because the situation too that affects every new worker is that the fundamental relationships between workers and owners are breaking. The extremes are really putting pressure in the middle. And whatever the corporate structure you're in right now, you could be doing very well in 2025, but the way they're playing pinball, you've got to be ready to bounce around when things change and all of a sudden you have a new title, you have a new job somewhere. And how do you manage that and stay positive so you keep a sense of optimism when things are really rapidly changing? More than I think we're used to, I think.
Yeah.
The rate of change is adding to the problem, I think.
Yes. I mean, right? Look at artificial intelligence. Look at how it's transforming the way that we work, the way that we think, the source of information we consult. Mm-hmm. It can be a tool that is really helpful. I honestly think every workplace, whether it's digital media, whether it's writing, being involved in publishing, whether it's music, computer programming, everything is being transformed by artificial intelligence. We have to help students think about how they can be the drivers of artificial intelligence, how they use artificial intelligence, rather than being driven by it. And where does that happen? It happens through intentionality at a university like Eastern.
Right. And learning the technology and how to figure out how to legally deal with controls, letting the business models grow without giving away the family farm just for the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's being debated right now in ways
that
are kind of way beyond the show. By the way, I just want to mention, you might be watching us on YouTube, but if you're on the radio right now, we're talking with Dr. Karim Ismaeli, the president of Eastern Connecticut State University. And maybe we could shift, we have a few moments to go. Something I mentioned to you before is some advice for people who are struggling with choosing to go to school or not, or maybe what kind of school. Because your origin story and your personal journey, it's a good coincidence the way that you arrived here at the time when Eastern has to connect to the world more than ever.
Yeah.
And coming here with family roots in South Asia, East Africa, growing up in London, that is such a well of experience that a lot of Americans would never have in the DNA.
Yeah.
But today, the way Eastern is connecting, this is a real asset. And I think it's a wonderful mix. And I wonder, for folks today, how would you thread the needle from your time as a student, early days in London, to being an administrator and now a president? What did you learn that you could pass on that would help somebody on their path? Not to replicate yours, but you figured something out. You found something that triggered it. Yeah. And it's hard to put into words. It really is. But could you share, and what was it that drove you that way?
So my response may not be what you're expecting.
I have no expectation.
It's a very sort of simple response in many ways. Throughout my life, I have been supported by so many people. And so when you move through your education, You're supported by your mentors. You're supported by your family, first of all. You're supported by your mentors. You're supported by people when you're entering your career who are there for you, who want you to succeed. And so here I am as the president of Eastern, and my goal is very simple. It's to make sure that everyone gets the same treatment that I got. Everyone deserves to be heard, to be cared for, and to have an opportunity. Now, will everyone take advantage of that opportunity in the way that we would hope? No. But the important thing is, with the right support, with the right guidance, with the right professors and people who care, all I would say is that that's my, if I know that's happening, I feel I've succeeded.
Well, let me ask you one last thing. We have just a few minutes to go. For people that are the stakeholders in higher ed, these could be parents who are going to be helping with tuition.
Yes.
Right now, the system that's giving us freshmen is also broken.
Yes.
And kids are coming out of high school very compromised. And sometimes universities have to make up for lost ground. And I know there are special courses offered to help students not give up, that if you're behind, it's okay, we'll figure out a way to get you through. But they're coming in with more limitations.
Yes.
So what could you say to people that are funding high schools or maybe even middle schools to say, look, when you argue budgets, it's money, it's taxes, but it's the future. And there's a very delicate way to get into this territory again without getting political. But it's more like, if this is the future, what can we advise people to say when you debate things? Education, in some people's minds, has to be a little higher, because these people, these young people, will be in charge one day.
Yeah.
And we're going to get back what we give them now.
Yep. And I think you put it perfectly. It's an investment. If we wanted to just be sort of like bottom line, we want to be economic about this, you know, what is the state, what are we willing to invest in the future of not only Wyndham, Willimantic, but the nation? What is the investment that we're willing to make? The investment in education is one investment, but it's a critical one. And I would argue, John, that from my perspective, we're not investing enough. We're not investing enough. Public higher education is not affordable. It is actually very challenging for many families to be able to send their sons, their daughters to an educational institution. Yeah. So and this is my role as well, we have to do everything we can to make higher education affordable. When I talk to students on our campus, they love being at Eastern, they love the education they're receiving, but here's the thing that's most important to them: affordability. Whatever we can do to reduce the cost of entry is critical. We will reap benefits in the future if we understand that the investment we make to defray those costs is made.
Yeah. So we'll try to have a Karim back in the fall after the legislature is finished with all of its budget work and they've had a chance to figure out plans for an update on how the school is going to, move through the next year. Maybe one last thought is, as you look ahead to the new year now, what is your number one concern and your number one reason to be optimistic, and the number one thing that you still worry about?
Well, the thing I worry about right now is the state of the country. Because the state of the country has implications for every institution, every educational institution. Yeah. You just have to read the press. You just have to go to good sources of information. So that's a concern. I'm very optimistic about what we do at Eastern and how focused we are at Eastern. And what was the other one?
Well, the question was, the biggest concern and the one thing that you're looking forward to with the most anticipation of positive things.
Well, I always look forward. I'm looking forward to teaching the course.
That's true.
I'm looking forward to meeting students in sort of that environment. Yeah. But, when we go through this period, kind of like what I would call the transition from one academic year to the next academic year, I like to sort of think about, how can we have a positive environment where we're doing everything we can to ensure that we're committed together, that we have a shared sense of purpose, and that we're all focused on students. That's always something on my mind, and I think that we have to be planful and mindful and intentional about that.
Well, Karim Ismaeli, President of Eastern, thank you very much for being here today and for your first year. We'll look forward to many more conversations.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great summer.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, we're going to take a short break and come back and get into some music with Bob Bralove, where music and spirit come together. Take care. Here you might be catching us on WILI, AM 1400 and 95.3 FM on Wednesdays live, 5 o'clock. We're also on WICH, covering Norwich and New London, and WECS, and we're also on YouTube and on local public access channel 192 at Spectrum Cable. We're also there getting all of our guests connected to you through all the ways we can. And for the next part of the show, we're going to focus on one of my favorite things, which is music, with the wonderful musician Bob Bralove. He's recently put out a fantastic collection of duets with Pattie Weiss. She's on violin, Bob is on keyboards. It's called Acoustic Conversations. And they really have done a wonderful job injecting improvisation into the duet form. So, Bob, maybe one thing we could do just to begin is, first of all, welcome to the airwaves in Eastern Connecticut. I know you're a West Coaster, so thanks for joining us today, first of all.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
So I know this kind of came together. You and Pattie connected at some point again over COVID, and you decided to do something together. And so this CD is your first real collection focusing just on the two of you improvising. And you did it in one session when you really let it all flow. So maybe a good start. Yeah, go ahead. How did it start up for you two?
Well, it's sort of old jazz style,
Yep.
The way the old jazzers would go in and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We'll see what we get," and that's what It adds pressure, like a performance, which is good.
That's right.
But you never know whether you're going to get what you want. But the odds were in our favor, and it was very magical, which is exactly what you want to record.
And some of the songs, it's an interesting way to describe it because you're invoking something. If somebody listens deeply enough, the two of you are doing more than just a conversation, I think. It's hard to describe with words because it isn't about the words, obviously. But some people will say a duet is when you trade sentences and you trade parts. But I think these songs, at least several of them, the way they hit me when I heard them 4 or 5 times is you're doing the same song and you're writing it together at the same time. And you're trading melody and rhythm as the pass-off. And it just flows beautifully.
I'm so glad it comes through because that's exactly what's going on. We have these, with my experience with Dos Hermanos, with Tom Constantin, which is sort of 100% improvisation all the time. We used to go out and make up song titles to things we had never played, and like Stravinsky plays Sesame Street or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that kind of training, gets you very much on that compositional edge and trying to create fresh ideas all the time. And it's always wonderful when you find a musician you can connect to on that kind of deep level where they will toss the ball over to you and catch it when you send it to them, and they seem to know exactly what to do, even better than you do. Mm-hmm. And they're feeling the same way, that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. Which is, what makes music magical.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. So we have some, fragments of ideas for some of these pieces that we hope to improvise, and they come around every once in a while, and then other pieces are, we do some covers on
mm-hmm.
it. It's very kind of normal, Freddie Hubbard tunes, but we take them in our own direction, because if we weren't doing that, we wouldn't be doing what we're supposed to do, is how we both feel that.
A couple of covers that really caught my ear immediately was you played with Satie a little bit, and one of my heroes was Bill Evans.
Yeah,
That tune,
mine
man, I got to tell you, the first time I ever heard that song, I stopped. It stopped me, and I got a tear. And every time I
Yeah.
hear that song now, it happens again. Something in those few notes, just a few notes, what he did. And
Yes,
you captured
yes,
it.
it's amazing composition because it allows you to get. It's so open in the way he structured it that allows you to get very intricate if you go there. But if you don't spend the time being simple, you're missing the tune.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of like, okay, I'm going to wait for the next note and see where, what does it say to me? Where does the space make me want to come back in? And, when two of you are doing that at the same time, it becomes irresistible. You keep wanting to do it again. So
Sure.
I just had a rehearsal with Pattie yesterday, and we have a gig coming up this weekend, and it's a private party, but we just couldn't stop playing. It was just like, okay, we got to get through all the tunes. We got to make sure we can play the whole everything we have on the list, and we have to say stop. No, stop. We have to stop. we have things to get to.
Out of control.
But,
Out of control.
Yeah, you just feel like, okay, well, we're making music right now. Isn't that the important thing?
Now, one thing I'll do at the end of our chat, I'm not rushing us, but at the end, I think I'll play the Bill Evans tune so people that haven't heard it will have a chance to. Because when you described it, it also reminded me of his years with Miles Davis when there were only a few notes, but they carried tons of information.
Yes.
And sometimes too many notes is you miss it then. You don't have time to be invoked, right? It goes by too fast.
Yes. And Miles used to, people would ask him, how do you know how many notes to play? Because he's famous for that space between the notes.
That's right.
And he said, I want to play the trumpet like you put lemon on fish.
Ooh.
Just enough, just enough to know it's there, and not enough to spoil the taste.
Wow, that's pretty tasty, I must say.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful tune that we'll close with, because if somebody hears it today,
Wonderful.
that would be the ultimate soundtrack. Anywhere on the planet when you're watching the news, turn down the sound and play that song and watch the picture. And just think what that would do to your head, let me tell you.
Well, just turn it off and watch the sunset is what I would say.
Okay, there you go. Now,
I was lucky enough to have a drink with Bill Evans before one of his shows. I just walked up to the bar, and there he was sitting before the show, and we had a brief chat. He was amazing.
Yeah.
I was just, changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
How I feel.
His trios with Scott LaFaro, those things, and he didn't leave behind a lot of music, but it was all wonderful, and it makes you miss him a lot. But something else.
There's a lot resurfacing now, so take a look. Always check in.
It's always good when the new generation, they say, oh, a lot of this old stuff really is cool after all, isn't it? It's like maybe I should have always checked it out. But something else I wanted to ask when you improvise is, you come from that space where everything comes and there's no labels on it. And there was one song, Dance of the Magic Spice. And in that one, I heard a lot of Middle Eastern tunings and chords. And I don't know if that was...
Yes, that is actually... Pattie has studied in India.
Oh, okay.
Studied violin in India.
That's where.
And that tune came together when she brought that raga. It's her favorite raga, and I think it's a morning raga. So, but it's always morning somewhere on the planet, and so she brought that in, and I just think it's a magical raga. I mean, there's so many implications and suggestions of what harmonic possibilities there are. Most Indian classical music doesn't have many harmonies the way they have drones and things like that, the way Western music does. But this raga implies all of the Western things. So you can go there, you can be in one key or another key, and it all works over the drones. It's just it was inspired. It was absolutely. She inspired me completely on that piece. It was like, oh wow, you play this like you've lived it,
I just want to mention, in case you've joined us here on the radio, we're talking today on the phone with Bob Bralove, and he has a new release out with Pattie Weiss called Acoustic Conversations, and we're talking about some of the tracks. Another one that caught me, really brought me to Johnny Cash. He did a great record many years ago when he toured the country on the railroads, and he went to all the different cities, and he went through the railroads and told stories. And you have this thing, Riding the Rails. And the way she plays the strings, that little percussive grinding thing is like, that's the metal on the track.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It's, I got to say, you got everything we put in there. She used to call, I had a basis for that track that I thought, oh, what would happen if Pattie played on this? And so we started experimenting with it in the early days. And she used to call it, the Johnny Cash track.
Wow. I love it. I love it.
So, and she has bluegrass fiddling experience. She was in a couple of bluegrass bands in her early stages. And so you can feel that on that track. It's so much fun to dig into that track with her, because it's, as you say, there are no limits in the way we think about the music.
Yeah.
So it could turn any direction. But you got that lilt always going of the the train tracks, that feeling of that rocking in there.
Oh yeah.
And then who knows where it's going to go. It's really, really fun piece for her. We don't try to put too much on it. I had originally thought of this track as something that was a way of me playing multi-rhythms, playing 5 in my right hand and 4 in my left hand, and going to 6 and 7s and 8s and all this kind of stuff. But when she started playing it, it was like, oh no, this is a new direction for this. We're going to dig into the rails here. So very fun.
And that was part of the flow of the moment too. She made the change, and you adapted right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the way it is. In playing with Dos Hermanos, I often say that sometimes Tom is going in one direction and I'm going in another direction, and I'm going, no, I have what I got to say here, and I argue with him musically, and we're fighting back and forth. At least that's what I'm perceiving. And then we get through that, and then I listen back to the show, and the argument is the best part of the track.
That's it. That tension.
Yes, and the immediacy of it. We're actually playing our feelings.
So I want to mention your website, because I always ask artists how they're using this technology, as much as it's a love-hate thing. BobBralove.com, BRALOVE, BobBralove.com. So if somebody was a web surfer and they went to your site, what would they find these days, and how are you using it to stay in touch with people in between your releases?
Well, they can always leave me a note there. I have mostly... I'm a visual artist as well, and I don't have my visual stuff on there right now. I did for a while at a different version of the website. But you will see recordings there from the Grateful Dead, Stevie Wonder. My background, I spent 8 years working with Stevie Wonder, and then 8 years with the Grateful Dead, and then all sorts of different other projects that have come up, and some of them have videos. One of the things I did with Tom for a while, and probably should revive it, is attach video to the keyboards,
to play
so that you see every note.
Whoa.
that we play. And then I put my paintings and drawings and photographs on the end of the notes. And then I build an algorithm for what this visual is going to represent. Some of them represent harmony, with each note layered on top of the others, and you see through them.
Wow. That's pretty
and
cool.
Others do other things. So it's all very, there's all sorts of stuff in there,
There's this guy
we had a
Sorry, go ahead.
We had a DVD with Pioneer for a while. I think it's out of print, but that was our first venture into that visual world. It was called Shadow of the Invisible Man.
Is some of that on the website? Shadow of the Invisible Man. Wow.
Yes.
That's intriguing. It's a big tease, Bob. It's a big tease. I love it. I love it. That's what it's all about. Speaking of teases, I wanted to ask you one thing, too. My first Grateful Dead show was 1971, Syracuse, New York. And
wow.
One of the things that blew my mind that I appreciate now more than ever was when you went to their show. On the side, there was this whole bank of open plugs when you could plug in your cassette. And they gave it away. And it was revolutionary that a band would break the rule. And by giving it away, they created a family that survived all the economic crashes of the industry over decades. And I wondered, you were very honored to have a few years with that gang. What was it like for you with that aesthetic as the history of giving it away, being smart about business, but not exploiting your fans?
They happen to be smart in business.
Yeah.
I never got the feeling that was, that's what made, they had to make money to make the whole engine work.
Oh, yeah, wall of sound, too, yeah.
I always found them in so much amazement of their fan base and their connection with their audience. I remember Candace Brightman, who was the lighting designer for the Grateful Dead. She had a meeting. There was a meeting, a band meeting, and she had a moment in the meeting, and she was asking for an increase in the budget for the lights. And it was we were doing stadiums and the competition out there, and she wanted to present it. She was a brilliant lighting designer, and anything she did was, as far as I was concerned, was pretty damn cool. And somebody was arguing about the price and talking to her about the price. And Jerry said, "What the hell? Give her the money. We don't know why they come to the shows. Maybe it's the lights."
It's every possible opportunity, right? Everything that works.
Yes.
Everything that works.
Yes, exactly. And also supporting her artistic vision and supporting the audience by making sure they had a good show to come to.
And they were.
Yeah, and always on the edge. Towards the end of the band's run, I was connecting the MIDI from the stage to the lighting scene, and the band was playing the lights for some moments in the show. Candace was brilliant.
It was interesting for you to have several years with them to see the history. The Owsley Stanley Foundation is sitting on over 1,000 hours of his tapes that they're gradually putting out. I've done 3 interviews with them. One was about the Johnny Cash thing at the Carousel. One was the Tim Hardin collection. And there was a third one, and they're just doing amazing work to preserve his genius of the way he recorded and a unique way of setting up the microphones. You know all about that. People are still discovering how he made records very differently. If you treat your speakers differently, you're in the room in a different way.
Yes, and he had he had a way of a vision for recording.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I actually feel like that seemed to be a requisite to be an engineer with the Grateful Dead, because everybody, whether it was John Cutler doing the records or the live sound at the end, or Dan Healy, or Betty, or everybody who was involved had a very advanced view of what the possibilities of sound could be. And I think that's what made it a magical show. The sound, I remember the first time I left the stage, which was probably 6 months into working there, because I knew my job was on the stage.
Right.
And I went out into the audience, and I was hoping to hear some big chords or something, hear the full power of the band.
Sure.
And I walked out there because of the opportunity of my work offered it at that moment. And it was, you could hear delicate little tiny things, the little, just a tap on the bell of a cymbal, just a suggestion. And it was so much more powerful to realize that the amplification was that intimate, that the band could do these kind of whisper things, and it would sound beautiful.
Yep, very clean.
Yes, it was wonderful.
And when it got loud, it didn't break or clip. It stayed clean. Even if it was loud, it was still clean. Yeah.
And having those extremes is very unusual, because a lot of instruments sound good at a certain level and not good at other levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the nature of the beast. But making it work on all levels of volume and delicateness was indeed a chore that we love to do. But it was for everybody who was involved. That's what you knew you had to give that to the band.
Yeah. Well, it's really nice to hear you describe that, because that's part of the DNA where this music comes from, when you're leaving words behind and you're looking at vibrations. And I wish I could talk to Pattie sometime, because we don't have time today, but when I learned a little bit about the bio and her work with healing and neuropsychology and using music for healing, I know people in our area use music with animals to help people communicate who are having communication disorders. There's so many things with sound that we're still figuring out, right?
Yes, and it seems to go deep but yet can bypass things that you're not even aware that it's doing. It just goes, whether it's memory, it enhances memory, it enhances. I'm a musician. It enhances everything in my life. But it's something that we all see regularly, and it becomes part of our lives. We know when it's time to play.
Now, speaking of playing, we've got a few minutes to go. Are you guys touring this year? You said you're playing, but is it mostly going to be out west, or do you have any plans to be up here? Because the music you're playing
now,
sorry, go ahead.
Right now it's out west.
Yeah.
But I think if we can find the opportunity, we could head east. The trick is to find the right venues. It's kind of hard to make things work, especially on this kind of a jazzy kind of level. This is not a heavy rock album. This is a warm, comforting blanket of fog.
Oh, it's a beautiful record. I really commend you both for this music. I've been enjoying it for the last couple of months, and I wish you great success. And hopefully we can stay in touch later in the year. Whenever you have new things coming out, we should continue our chats and stay in touch.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, so the website again is bobbralove.com, and the new release we've been talking about today is Acoustic Conversations, Bob with Pattie Weiss. I wish you a great summer, Bob. Good luck to you, and we staying in touch. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, so I think we have 4 minutes? 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to save that song for next week, but I recommend that too. If I have a chance, I'll play that for you again. What I do want to cover today while we have time are some calendar notices. There's still lots of stuff going on, and time is flying by. So let's get to this right now. The Wyndham Theater Guild is still doing Radium Girls. They have performances on the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th at 7:30. And the 15th at 2 o'clock. So that's the Wyndham Theater Guild Radium Girls right here at the Burton Levitt Theater, about a half a block away from us here at WILI. Wyndham Theater Guild, rock it out. Also, one more thing, I see the River Room, a couple of blocks away from us here on the Riverside Drive. They have concerts very active now. If you go to riverroomwillie.com, riverroomwillie.com, you'll get the whole schedule. There's a couple of great shows coming up. They just had Duke Robillard. This weekend, we're going to see Zakai Curtis on Saturday. We also have some other shows coming up, but the programs are all there online at riverroomwillie.com. I want to mention, too, Poetry in the Park is back for the season. This is at the corner of Curbstone Way and Jackson Street. They begin on the last Thursday for the summertime on June 26th. The series begins with Martine Espada. July 24, Hugh Blumenfeld. Hugh Blumenfeld on July 24th. That's going to be the last Thursday of June and July at the park, corner Curbstone Way and Jackson Street. And I think one last thing we have is the Molten Court film series closes. It's a pretty apocalyptic closing. I mean, with everything going on in L.A., it's great to go see Apocalypse Now. Check it out. June 25th, 6:30. Popcorn provided, BYOB. It'll be a smoking night. 31 Molten Court in Willimantic. Check out the show. It'll be a hoot. Whoever's there will have a great time. 6:30 on the 25th. That's it for this week. I'm out of here. Thank you for sharing some of your time with us. We'll see you next week.